Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Doing a little bit of scratch art here. Using the new tool my friend Sue sent me in the mail. I tell you, this new age of computers and emails, things are just so different. And her and I were talking last night about, we've never met. We probably will never meet. We live very far apart from each other, but we have such a good, close bond. We email all the time. I absolutely love her, this woman. She's just wonderful. We're on the same page about things. We check in with each other. I mean, I don't know about men, but women can really bond with each other. And she is just like a sister to me. And she's just a wonderful, wonderful, good soul person, good heart. Person with a really good heart. And I am messing this up something awful. To tell you the truth, I really cannot see what I am doing. Anywho, I have been binge watching documentaries on different, I guess you could call them tragedies. It's not like horror stories or scary things. It's just, I'm just using different tools and different methods and kind of feeling things out right now. Anyway, I have been watching documentaries on that airplane crash in the 70s. The movie is called Alive, where I think they were from Uruguay, rugby team, and their rugby is the same as our football. Sorry about that. Okay, I switched over to diamond painting. Anyway, Uruguay. Okay, so their rugby is our football, which makes sense because their football is our soccer. And when you play football, of course, you use your feet. So they kind of make more sense than we do. Anyway, so they're a rugby team, I believe from Uruguay. They're flying to a meet, and they have to fly over the Alps. I'm sure most of you older people have already heard of this. It happened in the 70s. And the cloud cover was so thick that the pilot, where am I with you people? Okay, right there. The pilot, they were supposed to go, okay, they had to go here, and they were here, but they couldn't fly straight from here to here because the mountains were too high, the Alps. So they had to go down, over, and then up to where they were going to go. But the pilot couldn't see what he was doing. I don't know if they didn't have radar back then or what, I don't know. But the pilot went down, and instead of going over here and up, he went over here. He didn't go far enough down, and he started crossing back up too soon and hit the top of the mountain. And the plane crashed, and I think there were 30-something survivors. And quite a few people died that night from their injuries. And then more people over time died from infection or frostbite. And they're on top of a mountain. There's nothing. There's no plants. There's no game to hunt. There's nothing. And in total, they were there for 2 months. Now, they did the smart thing by staying with the wreckage. They piled up all of the suitcases. They went through all the suitcases, got out every little last bit of clothing, bundled themselves up, lined up all the dead outside. They got themselves finally warm and comfortable enough. And they were all sitting, just starting to go to sleep, finally organized and semi-warm. And an avalanche hits. Now, the avalanche does not hit on the closed side of the plane. It hits on the open side, filling their small little fort, if you will, their new little home, with snow. 8 more people instantly get killed, just buried under this snow. They desperately dig out as much as they can, find the people who have passed, put them outside, dig out, start again. Now for food, they had some bottles of wine, a few packs of peanuts, and some chocolate. That's it. It was supposed to be a short flight. So they were there for 2 months. Now they're down to about, I don't know what they were down to, 18, maybe 23 people. And they were starving to death. They have actual real life pictures on the internet. And, I actually read the book years and years ago. Before the movie came out, it was a book. And, they look like Holocaust survivors. They were so thin. And it came down to the point where they had to eat something or die. And one of the men did decide to actually starve to death. But the other ones chose life, and they chose to eat the dead. Now, it was a hard decision. Most of them were Catholic. They did not want to do this, but one of the most animal instincts we have is hunger. It's just every living thing has got to eat. And it's a terrible, terrible feeling to be hungry. So they decided not to eat their immediate friends and family. I believe they started with the pilot and the co-pilot because they didn't know them. And quite frankly, they were a little angry that they kind of blamed them for the wreck. So they just took off a little bit here and there, and just enough to barely survive. And after quite some time had passed, 2 of the gentlemen decided to walk out and try to find help. Because they had found a transistor radio, and on the radio they did hear news that the search and rescue team for them had been called off. So that was it. Help was not coming. So 2 of them decided to just keep walking and walking and walking, and they bundled up and they packed some meat, and they got to the top of one mountain, looked around, and nothing but more mountains surrounding them. They kept walking, got to the peak of another mountain, more mountains, just mountains everywhere. And they figured, we're not going to sit down and die, we're just going to keep walking. And they did. And they finally got to, I believe it was I don't know what kind of animal, sheep herder or goat herder or somebody. And they couldn't believe their eyes. They saw another human. It was down in a grassy valley. Finally, they got out of the snow. And this man had gone for help. They had to spend one more night. They were across the river from this man. And they spent one more night across the river. And then the next day they were rescued. And of course they went back in a helicopter and saved their friends. And there are real pictures of their friends down on the ground, waving to the helicopter, so happy to finally be rescued. And I mean, they lived with that shame, but it was starve to death or eat human flesh. It's terrible. Poor guys. So, I'm curious, what would you do? What would we do? Guess nobody knows until you've actually been in that situation and felt that horrible pain of hunger. Then, that was the other day I was studying up on that. Of course, I know I had already read the book and watched the movie years ago, but it was nice to refresh my memory and just pause and pay respect for these men. So, there's another true story. This happened in Russia. 9 Russian young 21 to 24-year-olds. There was one 37-year-old, I believe. But 20-year-olds, 9 of them went hiking in the cold, awful mountains of Russia to do, I think they were studying something, or I don't know. But anyway, they were gone a week, and they were supposed to get in touch with their families, and they didn't. So 2 weeks went by, and there was a search party sent out, and they found the tent. It was one big tent, I believe, that they were staying in. I mean, I could be wrong with my facts, but this is what I've just been studying on. Well, forensic science has deemed the facts that they cut the tent from the outside. I mean, the inside. They were inside and they cut their way out. They were in such a panic and so afraid and in such a hurry to get out that they cut the tent. They didn't go out the zipper. They cut their way out the back. And they went running in all different directions. Most of them had no shoes. They were dressed in boxer shorts, t-shirts, and it was 15 degrees below zero. And they just went scattering in all different directions. The footprints prove that. Then the footprints showed that they kind of met up together down near some trees. And they were eventually all just found in different positions, all frozen to death. 2 of them, I think the ones that lived the longest went back and took whatever little clothing they could find off their dead friends and bundled up as best they could. But they did all eventually pass away from hypothermia. Now, 2 of them, their ribs were all broken, just smashed in. The coroner said it was akin to being in a car crash. It was that bad. And there was no bruising on the outside of the body, though. The inside was crushed, but there was no bruising on the outside. So, it's a mystery. Some people say it was an avalanche. They heard it coming and they just skedaddled out the back of the tent. But if that was true, the tent would have been covered with snow. Their footprints would have been covered. So that kind of debunks that theory. Another theory is a bear or Bigfoot, something like that. But again, no footprints other than the kids' footprints. and they could tell some had one sock, one boot, some were barefoot. They could distinctly tell these footprints for what they were, and there were no animal footprints at all around the tent site. Another theory is aliens. Another theory is, I guess there's some kind of weird wind that goes on in that area that causes people to go insane. It makes a high-pitched noise and just makes everybody crazy. There's another theory that they got such hypothermia that it made them feel like they were hot, so they stripped down out of their clothes. But the chances of that happening to all 9 people all in the same time is very highly unlikely. So, and also several people on that night in that area reported seeing lights in the sky. So that's something. Also, the 17th, I believe, the last photo taken on one of their cameras looks very much like some kind of a hairy beast, Sasquatch Yeti type thing. But they did investigate the measurements and the lengths of the arms and legs, and they decided that it was not a Sasquatch, it was a regular man. But why are they taking a picture of a regular man way out in the middle of the snow with a really big head? And I don't know. Other conspiracy theories talk about the Russian government trying to cover up something. There's a movie that I think it's called The Devil's Pass, which is very lightly based on the idea. It's a sci-fi movie. They definitely put their own swing on it. It's nothing to do with the truth at all. So I find these kind of things very interesting. I really do. I don't know. Just weird. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Tomorrow is Friday. We should be getting our eggs hatched by Sunday or Monday. So, fingers crossed, everybody. Oops. Helps if you pick up a drill. There we go. Fingers crossed. I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye. Okay, I just want to make a few corrections. The first story I was telling you about was, if I can pronounce this right, Dyatlov Pass. It was in 1959. They were Russian hikers, and they were hiking in the mountains of Siberia. The movie Alive, where they had to revert to cannibalism, was 1972, and it was not the Alps, it was in the Andes. And they were rescued after 72 days. What you're seeing now is one of the survivors from the plane crash. There's another one from the airplane crash in the Andes in 1972. There were no survivors in the Dyatlov mountain Russian hikers story. Actually, there were 10 to begin with. One of them got sick and turned back, and he was the only one that lived. His other 9 friends went off to never be seen again. I just wanted to make that correction.